What's up, guys? It's your boy Aniki. Today was a wonderful chapter of My Hero Academia, chapter 255. If you have not read it already, you should leave because you will be spoiled. These are manga deconstructions. With that, I'm going to, as always, go through the pages and let's begin. So, instantly we start off, they're noticing that there's something going wrong with Kurogiri as far as his brainwave patterns. This is just a way to show us that Aizawa was, in fact, reaching to him. If you remember, I said the way he turned his head last week was probably indicative of like some kind of shyness or emotional compromise coming from within. So we get more, flashbacks to the wholesome days with them, trying to really reach out to him and talk to Kurogiri, make sure that they can get to Shirakumo, and he once again emphasizes that he's Kurogiri protecting Shigaraki, but at the same time you can tell that as his face is distorting, that there seems like he's like, I haven't the slightest idea about, but the way the letters are written are like upside, like some of them are capitalized and bold and some are smaller, and I think the implication of that is that already is when the struggle between the two voices starts to come in. And as we have the story progress even further, though, we get one of the best panels of My Hero Academia in a long time. Part of the mist is just straight up fading away, left eye still glowing, but seeing Shirakumo's actual face right there. The revelation that we can access the base of the Nomu if we find the right ways to emotionally trigger them. I think this actually also sets up for one of my personal theories that I had. Whereas Cam has the Bakugo time travel theory, I've got the Bakugo becomes a Nomu theory. And I think that kind of lines up with the fact that there's no All Might to save him this time, and both times the villains tried to take possession of Bakugo. They tried to take his body, his power, and they wanted to utilize it for evil. I think the best, or the third time, is the charm. So what we could be getting is Bakugo becoming a Nomu when we get to this wars, and that would be the member of the origin trio that gets taken out. That would be an interesting plot line. I think that having Bakugo be the Nomu that had enough, and if any person were to become a Nomu from Class 1A or any of the students that we've been introduced so far, the person who's had the strongest willpower and stubborn showings has been Katsuki Bakugo. So the idea of him being the Nomu that manages to break through and maintain himself eventually, and being the Nomu with his own agency, and either offing himself as a Nomu or becoming like a professional hero as a Nomu, as ground zero, being even more terrifying, even more encapsulating that hero that comes off as a villain but will try harder than anyone to be a hero vibe. I think that would be a very fascinating take, and even though a lot of people would miss their cute version of Bakugo, I think that would be kind of an interesting direction for his character to go, is to have a hero that's also a high end, and that be kind of a part of the final battle, especially because people also talk about how there's a chance that some of the characters won't be able to keep up, and we see Shigaraki getting surgery to keep up with One for All, which is a quirk past Singularity, who already had a quirk that was bordering on the edge. So we see that in order to really keep up with One for All at this point, or these higher tier quirks, you need quirks like Shoto's, that's literally two quirks that balance each other out so that he can remove the negatives of going all out with his powers. And then you have the potential of maybe Bakugo becoming a Nomu, just to not intentionally or on his behalf, but it once again stabilizes and allows him to keep up with the All for One and One for All. Just different ways that different characters seem to be able to achieve getting to that level of such a powerful quirk, even though technically with the way that the quirk backlash system works and the way it affects your body, Bakugo being able to hit Mach speed, all these other things, he should be able to physically keep up with, he should be able to achieve like an S in power. Endeavor's capable of being that strong, and his quirk is heat versus something that is concussive force, and heat that has recoil that would allow for muscle strengthening and the kind of buildup that comes with using Bakugo's quirk, as well as having to use the sense awareness, etc. That being said, back on to the actual chapter, we see as he's getting through, they start trying to really talk to him, break down. Shirakumo starts to say Shota, and we see the flashbacks and he says hospital. Now, the thing that I think is important about this is this also goes in line with something that I mentioned in a previous video, where I stated that I think that the reason why they believe that Toya is dead is because when he went to the hospital, he was already really damaged, and they decided that they took Dobby, and they had considered taking him in, but realizing that his work had so much backlash, they didn't want to make a Nomu out of that because the Nomu would probably destroy itself. I think Dobby's flames are actually higher than a Nomu can regenerate. Endeavor's flames were already difficult, even though he could come back, but when he was in contact with the flames, the part was just going to be gone. And I think Dobby's flames could actually, we call it cremation, and it goes fast enough that I think it could just burn through a Nomu or a high end, and if you tried to amp that up as a high end, it would just end up burning itself to death. I think that's why if Dobby were taken by the doctor from the hospital and switched out, that he just went to an orphanage and probably because of shock lost his memories of his childhood potentially. And then Kurogiri manages to retake control. One of the things, though, that I think is important about this is that it doesn't feel like Kurogiri is just programming. It feels like, to a certain degree, this time period of while he's been programmed and he's been raising Shigaraki, that he has actually genuinely developed a personality of his own and his own ideals and started to move towards actually genuinely having a connection with him. And so his wresting of control from Shirakumo is not only because of his program, but also because of ultimately he is an intelligent and functioning being capable of his own desires, and so he's wresting control back with the aid of the fact that the body and program is modified for him. So I do think we have two genuine cases of an actual psyche within these characters. When I think what President Mike asking Aizawa about his eyes being okay, part of that was him asking him if he's okay, because we know that Aizawa was crying and asking him whether he wanted to actually talk about it. You can actually see the tear streaks, especially in the viz. And there were scan spoilers that went up, and of course I saw some people post some of the pages. That's the way it works. But with Jaiminis and manga stream going down, I think a lot of people might switch over to Viz because these trashlations aren't cutting it. I've seen some people post the panels of the trashlations that came out, and they definitely weren't good. Definitely would not recommend having tried to read it. You wouldn't have gotten anything of value from it. Much better to just wait for Viz with the level of translation quality we're getting right now, and I'm not even kidding. If my viewer base does want to switch over, because I know that I put out videos later than a lot of people fiend for, because I wait for Viz. If you switch over to that, though, what I'll probably start doing is doing live reactions to these chapters. And that way I can just avoid spoilers, because I don't have to worry about you guys spoiling anything on Twitter if you watch me and you're on Twitter or anything like that. And then we can do live reactions and real-time analysis and discussion together. So that's something to consider if you would like for that to be a thing on the channel. Because otherwise I still have to basically go completely pieced out from any form of interaction for 2-3 days to make sure I don't get spoiled. And at that point, some of the interactions it's up to which kinds of interactions you value, I guess. Now, when they discuss, hey, so what's happening with Kurogiri, they're basically having his programming overwritten probably caused an outright short circuit within his brain, and I think what we can expect is for Eraser to be taking more time away from school. And so what we are probably going to see here is the switching of Eraser's role is once again going more into seeing him doing hero work or investigative stuff, going to Tartarus, and we're going to see more of Teacher All Might as we get into this last 3 months, especially because All Might's being structured to die. So I think setting up and having him be able to reach an emotional connection with all the rest of the students, get to see what that's like, and him actually caring about them, really puts us in a position to finally send him off properly and painfully, assuring us an extremely emotional farewell, while also making sure that it doesn't just impact society as a whole, which it already is, but we have a reason to believe that it would impact the students, and for them to really come together and rally through the darker times ahead of them and have a reason to be sticking together through their trauma bonding, which is technically not a good thing for dating, but whatever, that's another subject. And you see them after the war that's coming as they try to bounce back. Once again, All For One proves that he is King Petty with his comments of how, it's like squeezing wine from grapes to make these Nomu. He's really driving home the fact that everybody's an object to him. it's all about like the fun of the situation. It's all for him. It's all for one. You know, you just go and you have fun, enjoy yourself. If you can take quirks, hey, it's it. But I think it's important to note that because of the fact that quirks affect your biology, I don't think All for One has a choice but to be this way. And to a certain degree, what I mean is, in the same way that Shigaraki, when he finally lets loose and just starts wiping out cities, is living his peak quirk existence. I think anything other than All for One being a douche and taking people's quirks and manipulating people and feeding off of others and their vulnerabilities and just exploiting everyone, I don't think he can exist as a being without doing that due to the way he's just naturally wired. He's another one of those people that might just be an obligatory bullet to deal with and keep moving. Uh, and Aizawa finally, he says, we're hoping to have no more sacrifices and get more progress. And we see Sukauchi alert the Madam President of the Hero Association, and then we get Hawks receiving a phone call saying, I'm busy. And they tell him that, it's a disturbance over at Wakagumo Hospital. This is apparently like White Cloud or something like that. Caleb Cook said on Twitter. So it's basically a reference to the cloud, or rather that Kurogiri specifically said hospital, and letting him know that something to do with the hospitals in the country is directly tied to the Nomus and the League of Villains, which I think is going to help them slowly be able to figure out and narrow down that Dr. Tsubasa or Uchiko is in fact working with the League of Villains. I think this is where this plot line is headed. It is a little sad for the time that this is happening, but it is happening. And we get one of the things that I love to say is Horikoshi doesn't waste panels. And once again, we get the fact that back in the day, Twice directly asked Hawks to teach him about the meta liberation ideals, and Hawks says he'll do it because it's simple and easy. And then we come back, and while it's kind of played for a gag, because we have to see what Hawks does in the downtime. What makes Hawks a believable double agent and what makes these plots real is seeing them when they do things beyond just, it's just spy stuff. Like, we could have cut away, had Hawks have the conversation, see him smile, boom, on. Instead, we want to build characterization, show what's actually going into him being the spy, what his role is, and him actually going over the Meta Liberation Army stuff is him playing into that, making sure that the Meta Liberation Army is functioning well and keeping up his end of bargains. This is all for the cause of Hero Society, even though it feels like it's for the Meta Liberation ideals. Now, we get a quite an intense speech here from Ujiko, because it kind of cuts away during the Hawks panel, and it's like, with a sense of self fully intact, a man who possesses unlimited power, the ultimate being sought after by all for one, and myself, my masterpiece. And then we see just Dr. Ujiko jumping up in the air, just celebrating, fist pumping, and there's just multiple tubes. Shigaraki is supposed to be buckled down to a table, but here's the thing, is that if you look closely, the clip is on, like the brace is on his wrist, and there's a chance he broke his arm with how hard he's convulsing and trying to basically break out from the pain. And he's been living like this for a month now, just getting all these things. But he said, you're even more perfect than I expected. So we could end up getting this event, this unraveling, earlier than expected, though I don't think that's necessarily what Horikoshi's going for. I think he's just going to come out healthier or more powerful than Ujiko really intended, and that's going to be fine. So I think here is essentially what we're about to see is Shigaraki is in essence becoming a Nomu, but instead of becoming a Nomu, he's being elevated to like Nomu levels of enhancement, but while still just being Tomura. And I think that's the what makes him the ultimate masterpiece, because of the nature of his quirk, because it's one of those hyper mutation ones similar to Ares. His body makes him more susceptible to quirk power, and I think that's going to be what ultimately allows him to reach this point of singularity and go beyond it, and for him and Deku to kind of hit that level of both being the peak of the respective sides, and that's going to be what justifies it, both of them inheriting the legacies of the past 200 years, essentially, of quirk society, with All for One coming at the very beginning, and One for All being passed through all of its generations. We're seeing quirks, both the good and bad side of the society. Everything that's been churning and building up for generations come to a head with these two. And we're going to see this first war. It's more than likely going to be Shigaraki winning, and then we're going to have to build up what to do from there. Deku's probably going to lose that right arm finally, ching ching, and that's what Horikoshi seems to be building up towards. I'm excited for it. I hope you guys are too. And I just want to also make sure I let you guys know that next Saturday on the 28th, yes, episode Lemillion will be airing, but Kid Otaku and I, as well as Archbishop East, Wreck-It Rezi, and Turtlequirk, aka Cameron, who, like I mentioned earlier, does the time travel theory video that I'll actually try to make it a point to link in the description of this video so you know what I'm talking about, as well as my Bakugo no Mood theory video. We'll be doing a end of the year review stream of My Hero Academia on December 28th at 1500 United States Central Standard Time. That's ends up being 1600 or 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And at whatever time zone Cam is in the UK, that ends up being like 9 p.m. It's 1 p.m. Pacific. I covered as many times as I possibly could using U.S. Standard Time. Mountain Time is obviously going to be 1400 or 2 p.m. Make sure you guys are there. We're going to be hopefully having a great discussion. Going to be discussing Cam's time travel theory, overall theories of where we expect the series to go, and also just talking about this past year of My Hero Academia. There's no chapter next week, and I hope you guys all have a wonderful day. Anaki out.